I would now like to introduce Robert Rosenkranz, chairman of the Rosenkranz Foundation, the sponsor of Intelligence Squared, who will frame tonight's debate. Please welcome Bob.
Well, thank you very much. With me is Dana Wolf, our executive producer, and it's our pleasure and honor to welcome you to now the final debate of our fall season. You know, perhaps it's less expensive to save a human life in sub-Saharan Africa than anywhere else on the planet. The vision of babies dying from easily preventable diseases just stirs our sense of common humanity. It's not difficult to control the spread of HIV/AIDS, to reduce iron deficiency anemia with dietary supplements, to fight malaria with chemically treated mosquito netting. Each of these strategies offers exceptionally high benefits and saved lives versus the relatively modest costs involved. So how then might aid to Africa do more harm than good? It might do so by further entrenching despotic governments at the expense of an energetic private sector. In Africa, many leaders simply use the machinery of the state to enrich themselves, their cronies, and their kinsmen. When additional resources are provided to such states, however noble the humanitarian goals, a substantial share ends up in the pockets or the Swiss bank accounts of the leaders and their principal supporters. The more resources such leaders command, the longer they can stay in power. So the question tonight is, has aid to Africa produced measurable improvements in health, nutrition, education, and incomes? Or has it simply entrenched bad governments and bad ideas? We have an outstanding panel this evening, moderated by Brian Lehrer, the award-winning host of New York Public Radio's most thoughtful and informative talk show. It's my pleasure to welcome Brian back to another debate.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction, Bob. You know, on my radio show, I sometimes say that if we in journalism were really honest, we would have the same lead story every day. 20,000 children died today of hunger-related causes. Most of those deaths were preventable. Imagine if 20,000 people were killed once in a terrorist attack or an airplane crash. We would turn the world upside down to make sure it didn't happen again as a matter of policy, and we would cover it to the ends of the earth as a matter of news. But 20,000 children a day, and hardly anyone in the West or the North even realizes it, and it never leads the news. Disproportionately, those children are in Africa. So tonight's topic may not be the sexiest one in this year's Intelligence Squared US series, but I'm certain that it's the most important. With that, I'd like to welcome you to the fifth debate of the second Intelligence Squared US series. The resolution being debated tonight is, aid to Africa is doing more harm than good. Now let me give you a rundown of the evening. Members of each team will alternate in presenting their side of the argument. Presentations are limited to 8 minutes each. When opening arguments are complete, I will open up the floor to brief questions from the audience. After the Q&A, each debater will make a final 2-minute summation. As you'll see, they'll also get a chance to ask each other some questions, and I'll have some follow-ups as well. And finally, you will vote on tonight's motion with the keypad attached to the armrest of your seat, and then I'll announce your decision on which side carried the day. I'll now introduce the panel. Please hold your applause until all 6 are introduced. For the motion, the president of the Free Africa Foundation and distinguished economist in residence at American University, George Ayittey. Professor of Economics at New York University, co-director of NYU's Development Research Institute, and non-resident fellow of the Center for Global Development, William Easterly. And contributing writer to the New York Times Magazine and contributing editor to the New Republic, David Rieff. Against the motion, co-founder and former president of AfriCare, senior advisor to All Africa Global Media, and president of the business consultancy Lodestar, C. Payne Lucas. Associate Director of the Center for Globalization and Sustainable Development at the Earth Institute at Columbia University, Senior Macroeconomic Advisor in the UN Development Program's Africa Bureau, and former Deputy Director of the UN Millennium Project, John McArthur, and Senior Fellow at the Center for American Progress, and former Senior Director for African Affairs at the National Security Council, Gayle Smith.